No idea how I'm supposed to do this in 2 to 3 minutes, but let's try. There is 3 types of animation: 2D, 3D, and stop motion. But when I talk about stop motion cuts, it is not digital. Let's start with 2D animation. For example, if you want to animate this ball, you can create a new frame, use this tool, move the ball, create another frame, move the ball again, and use this other tool to insert the amount of frames you want in between. For example, if you put 5, you'll end up with something like this. But what if you put 10 frames instead of 5? Well, you get something like this. You can see it is smoother and slower. That was tweening. Next is frame by frame. Frame by frame, you have to draw everything 1 frame at a time. That's why it's frame by frame. You'll get something like this. 2D animation, there's tweening and frame by frame, which consists of the 12 principles of animation: keyframes, squash and stretch, anticipation, and timing, which are just the main ones I use. Let's move on to 3D animation. For 3D animation, there's modeling, texturing, rigging, animating, and lighting. Here's a video of this guy explaining.
Every animator has their own way of working, but for a beginner, it's definitely a fail-proof system. Step 1. Shooting a reference video. This is a very important and overlooked step. The thing is that people really think that they know how certain actions look like and how long they're going to take, but they're often wrong. Physical actions is something you need to analyze before starting to animate, especially if you're a beginner. If you have a shot of a guy throwing a baseball, you better YouTube some reference video of pitchers throwing balls. Don't assume you know what it looks like just because you've seen it before or did it yourself. Observing an action as an animator is completely different than doing it on your day-to-day. So for this tutorial, I decided to go with a guy winking at someone and pointing at them in kind of a silly way. So the first thing I did was shoot a reference video. Now that you have the reference, it's time to create your key poses of the shot. These poses are called key poses because they are the most important poses of the shot. These are the poses that if someone saw just them alone, they would know exactly what's going on in the shot. You better make sure you get those poses right. The next step is blocking. Once we're happy with our poses, we start breaking down the movement from each pose to the next by adding in-betweens or breakdown poses or passing poses. There are many names for it. We keep doing that until the movement looks as good as it could be while still staying in the step mode. Step mode is when you don't allow computer interpolation between poses, so that's why the animation looks kind of choppy and blocky. Step 4 is splining. Splining is a 3D animation term. It's the process in which you convert the interpolation from step to spline. In other words, you make the computer connect the movement between each of your poses, and it makes the movement look smoother. The problem is that the computer doesn't do a very good job at interpolating it. That's why the better the blocking is, the better the spline version is gonna look. This is how our shot looks right after pressing the spline button. Smoothing and offset. Now that all our keys are on spline mode, we have some work to do. We need to clean up all the curves and make sure the movement looks smooth. It's also a good idea to offset some of the actions, otherwise it looks very stop and start, as if he's doing all the motion at once. By the end of this step, your shot should look pretty solid or even kind of finished. And then we have our last step, adding life. This step is the most fun because you're already done with the grunt work of animation and it's time to just add the fun stuff, the cool stuff. In this step, I just usually add small imperfections that add life to the character, maybe an extra blink or a mouth twitch. The difference between the last 2 steps is small but very noticeable.
But you may ask, how would I use this in Works? Well, we can do something like this. Thank you for listening!